So now, before our break, we're going to have one more talk, and that talk is Sue Tappan. So Sue is a member of the SPARC Data and Resource Center, which builds and maintains the SPARC portal. She's excited about fair data and open science, and currently works on creating a software tool for curating scientific knowledge about peripheral nerve connectivity. The talk is entitled SPARC, Bridging the Body and the Brain Using Fair Principles for Data, Models, and Devices. Let's give Sue a hand.
Hi, everybody. All right. Just one second, please. Okay. Okay. So it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm a fish out of water here. I don't do anything with hardware. I do find it very exciting, and I've enjoyed my entire time here, just soaking up all of the diversity and just enthusiasm for all the different ways that you can make a difference as yourself and with a community. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit about our project, and I'm actually hoping to solicit some assistance from your experience, your knowledge on how building community becomes such a success like it is here. So as in the introduction, SPARC is a peripheral nervous system systems physiology data ecosystem. So we're interested in simulations, maps, knowledge, and data. And to give you a little bit of insight into how we got started, we are funded by the NIH Common Fund Program, and it stands for Stimulating Peripheral Activity to Relieve Conditions. And it's to promote a more effective and targeted neuromodulation therapies by providing scientific and technological foundations for future biomedical devices and protocols. So there were two talks today, one just by Chris and yesterday with Alex. Those two projects that they presented are also funded by the SPARC program. And the group that I work with is established to build a place for all of not just the devices, but the data that comes from those devices, data that is supported to help inform how those devices should work, and tools in order to make those all of those things discoverable and interoperable and reusable. And so it got started in 2015. And in 2023, we became an open repository. So we are accepting contributions from the research community that relate to bridging the body and the brain. So everything that you guys have spoken about today, all these different tools and applications that you're creating, actually help build that bridge from the periphery to the brain, solving particular problems. And so I'm only one part of a giant consortia. This is a picture of who we are as the Data and Resource Center. We are distributed globally. We have our simulation core is based out of Zurich. Our biophysical and anatomical model core is based out of Auckland, New Zealand. The knowledge core, which is what I'm a part of, is based out of San Diego. And then the data management applications and development is based out of Philly. And so we're all supported by the NIH SPARC program, and we exist to support the research teams that are also funded by NIH under the SPARC program, like Chris, like Alex and these other research aspects that I'm going to give you a little bit of information about. So our goal is to establish data reuse as a consistent part of data dissemination. We really want to allow people to see that the data is the primary outcome of their experiment. It has great value, but it gets distilled and hidden away in the interpretation that is published as a publication. So we want to raise the level of how important data is to not just the interpretations that they make and present and build their body of work with, but also it's a great resource for the rest of the community. Helps you build collaboration researchers who have a different hypothesis that they might want to test that's in relationship to an area that you're interested. Maybe your data actually encompasses a little bit beyond your narrow focus for the question that you wanted to answer, but it fully covers someone else's question. This helps lower that barrier for the experimental cost, because now if the data is available, it can be reused without having to regenerate it. But in order to do that, you have to make sure that the data is understandable and accessible. And so that's what the DRC is established to try to help address. And so we fully believe in the power of convergence. We think that molecular medicine, neuroscience, engineering, computational science, and all you hardware makers all get together to create these devices to diagnose and treat diseases. It takes this entire village to do so, and we should all be best friends. And so from the SPARC perspective, SPARC is focused on the autonomic nervous system. So that's the involuntary control. That's the things that keeps your organs working and all of the involuntary actions that your body performs without you making too much of a impact on. And so the data that is coming in now to the SPARC portal represent 3 specific areas that is incredibly exciting. The open source implantable systems, Cosmic and CARS, really represent just an incredible opportunity to have open source hardware to lower that barrier for everybody else to really make real change. And it's such a hard problem. I'm so impressed. But in order to help inform that, we also need to know a lot more about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the largest nerve in your body, and it does lots of things. It involves all of this autonomic control, but it also has actions for somatic and muscular control as well. So in order to better build devices and intervention therapies that involve the vagus nerve, which is the best target right now for bioelectronic medicine, or the most common target, we need to know a lot more about it. We need to know how variable it is between person to person. And so the largest data set of human vagal anatomy is being conducted right now. And the insights that are coming from it are so critical for individual device design. So for cuff design, for example, how these fascicles inside the nerve twist like spaghetti. And that has a big impact on how you design your cuff to sit alongside that nerve in order to stimulate what you want and not what you want. So you want to make sure you put that nerve or the stimulation device in the right location so that you get on-target effects with minimal off-target effects. The way that we're also informing that is with first-in-world data sets of multi-system effects of vagus nerve stimulation. Vagus nerve stimulation is used for a lot of different applications, including epilepsy, drug-resistant depression, gastrointestinal applications as well, like Crohn's disease. And you can imagine that if you have a device that stimulates the nerve, you also want to know not just the good things that happen. So yes, you are limiting the gut motility so that your Crohn's disease is better controlled, but you also are impacting other aspects of your body. And so understanding how all those things play together is what this whole impact is about. In addition to that, though, we're now supporting and bringing together data about pain. So the rejoin and precision projects are focused on pain due to joint disorders, so arthritis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. You may know about the most recent FDA approval for the RA device. It was just approved earlier this week. That was really cool. And then precision is looking at the individual differences between people on how their genes in the are changed in response to pain in the spinal cord. So lower back pain, for example. What makes them different? Why is it different? How can we understand that? And so bringing all of that diverse data together is what we're interested in doing. And we're hoping that having all that data, all of these opportunities of all these different research disciplines together will also help inform our desire to create in silico models like digital twins, which is what the VITAL project is about. That's an EU project that's looking to create better representations of ourselves based on what we can anticipate from the various models that we have. So we want to make meaningful scientific data sharing. And in order to do that, we need to integrate this approach. And that requires that the data sets be well documented and understandable, not just by the people who create them, but anybody who might be interested in understanding a little bit more about it. We work to try to address that. And the way that we do that is by working to create a place where all that data can coexist in a way that it's been harmonized, so you don't have to understand all the intricacies in order to get into an area of knowledge, and then also provide tools so that you can do something else with it. So in order to do all of that, we adhere to the FAIR principles: findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And by doing that, we can build this repository that is multi-species, multi-domain, multi-resolution, multi-scale, everything from electron microscopy to systems physiology, to CT scans, and to devices. And by having a similar and unified set of principles to arrange and align that, it makes it available for others to operate on. So how we do that, the principles that we have employed in order to help make that happen, is that we consider every contribution to the portal as a data set. It's a computational data set, it's an anatomical data set, it's an experimental data set. Each data set has structured metadata, a predictable folder structure, so that as you are accessing this data, whether it's by visual exploration on the website itself, or by API access, you know how to retrieve what you want to retrieve. Additionally, we adhere to minimum information standards. So that ensures that each data set, regardless of what it is, has a minimum amount of information that allows you to understand what's there. We also adhere to common data elements and a controlled vocabulary. This is the part of the project that I play that's my area of where I work on this project. And If you know anything about the human body, you know that there's lots of names that are used for the same thing. And so that is an extreme problem when you want to harmonize and use data, right? You're going to call this the head. I might call it the cranium. And now, if you don't know that head equals cranium, they're not going to be considered equivalent. And so we work to create these systems so that we can establish a way to get around that. Try to make the data presentation beautiful to reflect the effort that goes into every experiment. But the most important things that we think are essential is that you know who created the data and how you can get in touch with them. So all contributors are invited to use their ORCID identifiers so that anybody who wants to establish a collaboration can actually reach out and talk to that person. You can access this data and reuse this data using a CC BY license. And so attribution is your only requirement. You can see the interpretation of this data because we link the primary publication. So the data set has a DOI, the publication has a DOI, and those two things should cross-relate to each other. So you can find them whichever way they're published. Another thing that we think is pretty important is versioning. Just like you can, have different releases of software, you can have different releases of data. As you learn new things, as you perform new analyses, we want to make this a dynamic repository of information, not a static snapshot at a given time. And then it always includes information about the experiment in plain English. So we have a study purpose and curator's notes. The curators, take a step back because they didn't perform the experiment. And so as they help conform the data to FAIR standards, they also glean a little bit more information from the contributors themselves to say, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that particular process. That's not something I'm not familiar with. How do let's put that into a way that non-domain experts can walk into that. So far we've got 55 terabytes of data. That's a lot of data. And so that's why this is such a big challenge. We really want to make sure that it's not 55 terabytes of data just sitting on a shelf that no one is going to access again. We want to make it reusable and usable for people who did not know that this was something they could have access to. There's over 350 data sets, and every data set comes with an experimental protocol that takes you step by step, just like a recipe. So it's not a methods section in a paper. It is truly the protocol so that you can understand exactly how that data was created. And in terms of access and making this data more equitable, we've been able to become partnered with the AWS Open Data Partnership. And so what that means is that all of this 55 terabytes in counting is available to everyone for storage and egress free of charge. So once it's published on the portal, it's free for you to use in perpetuity. So we really feel that that's a very important aspect of what our vision is for how data can really propel new discovery going forward. Just want to say that on the portal, all that effort to put in all of these the metadata is actually used to make it more discoverable, more understandable, more findable. And so and it's findable. That's great, but if you don't know what you can do with it, that doesn't necessarily make you use it, right? And so we see the SPARC portal not as a repository, but an ecosystem And we have apps on the portal right now that represent ways that you can explore this data, but we also expect and hope to add to our apps list by community contributions. We're running a codeathon right now. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a hot second, but we want people to dive in, explore it, see what you got. You know, there's CT data, there's micro CT data, there's RNA-seq profiling, all sorts of stuff. But we also want to expand and integrate all this knowledge together to start showing where they're related and how they might be useful in terms of thinking about your experiment or your a problem that you want to address. And so it's great to know that there are data sets from the liver and there's data sets from the kidney or something like that. But how might data in the kidney be related to data in the liver? So we're building this peripheral nervous system connectivity map. And this is a knowledge graph that is built to relate all of the data based on how the body is innervated. And so it's a semantic knowledge base that is gleaned from the data itself, the experimental peer-reviewed publications, and direct contact with experts. And all of that is built into the knowledge base that powers the query, that powers the association of all these data sets together. And then layered on top of that is an AI agent for you to interact with that knowledge graph. So you can use it just like ChatGPT, but it won't hallucinate because it's only searching our database, not anybody else's. So it is quite a comparison to just ask these same questions of ChatGPT versus one that's constrained to our database. It's a lot of fun, actually. So just to give you a view of what this might look like. So in this case, these are our anatomical maps. As data is being contributed to the SPARC portal, it gets integrated at multiple levels. So here's a visual demonstration of what this type of information turns out as. And so what this is a depiction of a circuit that innervates the kidney. And on the right side of the screen, you can see where those neurons start and where they terminate. So they terminate in the kidney, the glomerular capsule, all of that, and how they got there. And that how they got there, that routing, is really important for device creation. And also in thinking about a virtual experiment where you might say, okay, well, if I stimulate here, what else, what's impacted, what's downstream of that location? All of this data is peer reviewed or has provenance. And so you can just click to see how we got to that statement right there. We also show you how they're interconnected. So it's one thing to show a path like this that says, okay, well, it goes from the kidney to the spinal cord. That makes sense. But when you lay it all out, there's a lot of interconnection that happens. And so all of that's kind of important when you want to consider the signal integration that's actually happening. Those maps and models get a lot more complex and detailed as you dive in. And so we've got a whole body model that's 3D, as well as different species. So when you are looking to transition from, say, a large animal model, like Alex was talking about, those particular challenges of translating your animal experiments to, first in human, This is a way that you can help inform that information. The data sets that exist already that are present, you can go right to them. And then from there, you can actually do some in silico modeling if you would like. And I figured this might be where we might have some overlap, maybe. And that the challenges in computational modeling are the same challenges that are present in experimental wet lab applications too. Reproducibility and sustainability. Will it still work in 5 years? How do you know what input parameters and input data were used at the time that you ran that simulation? And what if you want someone else to use your pipeline, or someone else wants to collaborate with you? All of those things are not just a challenge of computational modeling. I mean, it's true in experimental wet lab work as well, but we're not going to be able to just ship our machine to people. And so OSPARC is free for you to use. If you do any modeling or you want to do any data analysis, please take advantage of this very powerful online cloud-based computational pipeline. Its primary purpose, these are a little bit old, is to give you the power of prediction. You can do multi-scale, multi-physics modeling for these electronic applications. You can also do it just to play around with your own particular analysis routines for different types of image data, for example. There are modular building blocks and explorable data analyses that are already integrated into the system. And so these things are there for you to use. It supports CAD design. So if you've got your device and you want to see how well your cuff will fit on a nerve of a particular diameter, and then model how what happens if the nerve is a little bit smaller than your cuff, for example. Those are things you could do, but you don't have to be a computational modeler in order to do this. We've got guided workflows and a cookie cutter service creator. So you can just say, oh, I'm going to take this application and combine it with this one and this one. And it's meant to lower the barrier for this type of computational modeling. It does support verification and validation processes, as well as uncertainty quantification. So all of these things that really take a lot of time and can be very expensive if you have to do it experimentally. You can do it in silico, and it can provide a really great prototyping it'll be available on demand for everybody to watch. So all of those things are where we're at right now. We have this ecosystem that we've built over these years with the NIH funding, and we are working to build a community that spans many disciplines and experimental modalities, and all of these things sound great on paper, but the activation energy to go from that into a community that can see this as a place to go, an opportunity to use what's there and contribute their own ideas and own outcomes back to this, is where we're at right now. And so we do want to establish data sharing and data reuse as a consistent part of research dissemination. And we're trying to build the community. So we work to share the information, the outcomes of these research studies as broadly as we can. So we've got a LinkedIn presence, we've got a presence on Blue Sky, we've got a newsletter, and on the portal itself, we have a news section that basically provides sort of a breakdown of not just the outcomes of research, but sort of how you got to that place. So it's more of a, how did you get to the point of devising your experiment, going through the challenges of collecting and creating that data and interpreting it, and how can people take what you've provided and use it as a springboard to go to the next thing. This morning, it's always a lot of fun. We've got 7 international teams right now developing innovative projects that build off of our open source application. So the portal is open source. The resources that we've created are all open source. You can access the GitHub. You can contribute things that you think would be useful, and that's what these people are doing right now. So I'm really excited that this is going on, and we'll have an announcement next Monday with the winners of the project. The challenge with this is that we really want to entice people to start using other people's data, right? So people who do modeling are really comfortable with that because they're not actually running wet lab experiments to actually generate the data in the first place. But for the rest of us, we're typically in one camp or the other. And so building that bridge is something that we've been working on for the last few years. We also have a seminar series in hopes of trying to share just the breadth of information that people are doing and what types of challenges they're running into and what their successes are as they're building and presenting their research. And I'm looking forward to continuing to support that. And then lastly, we have, I mentioned that we've got an apps page where applications that can springboard off of data that is available on the SPARC portal or represent an application that can be of use to this concept of bridging the body and the brain can be shared. So if you've got a tool that relates to this, you can just list it on our site, and we'll help direct people to find new operations. And so basically our challenge is this: we need to transition from the focus provided by our funder, NIH, to become self-supporting. We really believe that it's really great to bring such diverse people together. Your computer engineers, your hardware folk, your experimentalists, and ontology. We want to bring these people together because we can do great things together, but they've already got their own place to go. And I think we want to become self-supporting, and we want to be community directed. And we want to leverage our strengths, those of us in the Data and Resource Center who are experts in our field, to help continue to build the community. And so with that, I just wanted to thank you for letting me introduce what we're doing here related to the SPARC program, and I would love to talk to you if you have any thoughts about what you particularly like about your community, things that you this appeals to you, and what we might be able to do to give a bigger seat at the table on the SPARC portal for hardware. So thank you.